Hey guys, it's me, Dr. Jennifer Otter Bickerdike, with another episode of Inside the Music Industry podcast. And today we're in Bristol at the Victoria Pub, and I have the gorgeous, fabulous, and talented Sam Kelly here with us today.
Hello.
Thank you so much, Sam, for coming along. And is this your local that we're at right now?
It is, yeah. Literally, you could chuck a stone from my house into the beer garden, which is lovely. It's lovely. Nice to live.
Are you going to give us the
nice
address
spot.
for fans to come sit outside, or no?
No. The one fan that we have.
No, that's not true. So I know what you do. Can you just tell the uninitiated what you do and who you are and why you're here?
So I'm a folk musician. I'm a folk singer and musician. So I basically just spend my life travelling around the UK and beyond, playing to lots of old people, which is very nice. I have lots of...
Am I old? Let's get this.
No, you are
young and youthful.
Were you a musician in the folk scene, you would be described as a young folk musician.
Really?
Honest, you would. Yeah.
Do you need a tambourine player?
Yes.
I'll wear something very low cut.
That's fine. Yeah. Give the people what they want. Yeah.
That's right. I like your style.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about music that you like before we talk about your career a little bit. So folk music, like you are not, when I saw what you looked like, I knew that you were a BIMM alumni. I knew kind of some of your career trajectory, which we'll get into. I was absolutely shocked that you were this young, attractive, and now charismatic, I'm meeting you guy. Was folk the first music you got into?
Yeah.
It was, okay.
Yeah, so
You're too attractive to be a folk singer, is basically what I'm trying to say.
No, it's like, I was very lucky as a kid because I had an Irish granddad who, none of the rest of my family are musicians at all, or even really into music, and so
So growing up, your parents were playing records in the house?
Not really.
Really?
They'd listen to, my dad had listened to stuff in the car, and so had my mum, but they weren't into music really. But my granddad was a folk musician, and he was a beautiful singer as well. And I used to, wherever I used to go around his house, he had like loads of instruments in the house, and he'd always pick them up and play them. He had the melodeon, like squeeze box, and bower on like an Irish drum thing, and I just absolutely loved it. And when he realised that I loved it, he whenever I go around there, it was kind of like
a little jam session
forced upon me. Yeah. But,
is he still with us?
No, he died. He died 3 years ago now, so he's gone. But
he's gotten to see some of your success, though.
Yeah, he saw quite a few of our gigs. He came to our first ever EP launch back in 2013. That was the last gig he came to, I think. So he has seen us play a few times, and he was, I know he was super proud. So, and I think that's with folk music, like you say, I'm quite young to be playing it. I think most of the other folk musicians I've met around my age, like the guys in my band, have got into it because of their parents or grandparents who are into it. So I think it's very rare to find somebody who's got into folk music, because of finding out about it themselves. So,
I mean, when you're saying that, it just kind of starts, because my parents listen to a lot of records at home, and it just, like, classic rock is, you could say it's kind of the same thing, like, you got into the Doors or Zeppelin or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that because there's still a living, breathing folk scene that has festivals and a real community around it that makes it different than something like that, do you think?
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, definitely. It is, because it's a real, like, oral tradition, the folk music. It's like all about passing things on to people via actually live performance and stuff like that. So the festival scene is massive. Like, and when I first went to a folk festival, which was Cambridge Folk Festival when I was 16, I just like totally fell in love with the whole thing. Like everyone was walking around in their pajamas firstly, which was lovely, but also just in the campsite there was just loads
that was
of
another scene, but we'll...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the dark side.
Yeah,
of the folk
exactly.
scene. But loads of people were just sitting around their tents jamming, and you could just go up and talk to people, and someone would pull a whistle out, and it's great for jamming, and that's kind of one of the things I loved about it, is just that sort of meeting up with random people you've never met or spoken to before and just playing music with them.
Now,
So, yeah.
at that point, had you been going to more like the Reading festivals and other kind of festivals?
No, I've never been to a big mainstream festival, actually.
Really?
The biggest festival in terms of numbers I've been to was this summer when we played at Croppedy, which is like 20,000 people. I've never been to one of the like proper big ones.
So you played in front of that many.
Yeah,
wow,
yeah. So
wow,
that was our biggest gig. We've had a good like last couple of years. We've been sort of everything's been kind of coming together. So
that's
nice.
really interesting. So your experience going to these events, it wasn't like you were going and thinking, I want to be on the Glastonbury stage. It literally was you liking the community atmosphere at the folk festival.
Yeah, and you know, it's for like a young band like us. The other thing that's attractive about, you know, starting to play in the folk scene is that it's a lot easier to make a living than it is in a lot of other scenes. So that was another thing, you know. We used to play a lot of more standard gigs, like, you know, multi-band bills in London and stuff when we were living in Brighton.
Like the toilet scene, like that?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And
that's what those venues are called, aren't they?
Yeah, sort of like, you know, playing with 5 other bands in one night, and you'll get 20 quid if you bring more than 10 people through the door and stuff like that. So we started off doing loads of shows like that, and then when we actually got our first gigs in the folk scene, i.e. like folk clubs and small slots at folk festivals, and you realised you could get like 350 quid for playing to like 20 people, because people are a lot older and have a lot more disposable income, and you know, you play to 20 people and sell like 18 CDs or something like that is completely different. So that's probably another factor in actually sticking with that and trying to make a career of it, apart from the fact that it's the music in my kind of blood anyway, I guess. But
so did you have like a time when you're like, okay, like I think of myself, for example, and I'm like I love everything Factory Records at Manchester scene, like 80s, 90s Manchester, like I love that. But then I also love like Steely Dan and Fleetwood Mac and la 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 la. Were you ever like having these multiple interests, and then how did you I mean, was it kind of all these factors coming together that kept kind of steering you towards folk?
Well,
does that make sense? Like,
yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like, I definitely have that multiple interest thing, in that I'm definitely not just into folk music. I love folk music, but I listen to a lot of classic rock, and like my most of my driving music is, you know, listening to sort of bands like Fleetwood Mac and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and Dire Straits.
Is Fleetwood Mac without Lindsey Buckingham?
Well, I mean,
this is a really important question if we're going to get on or not. What do you think?
I've personally, all my favourite Fleetwood Mac tracks are ones that heavily involve Lindsey Buckingham, like The Chain and stuff like that.
Yes.
But you know, I've never had the pleasure to see him live, so you know, I love the you know, I love Albatross and stuff like that.
Do you like the Peter Green years?
Yeah, but I like, you know, I definitely Buckingham is my favourite.
I mean, you still
musically.
No, I'm exactly. I mean, it's funny because no matter how poor I've been, I've squirreled away about 2,000 pounds, and it'd be like, we have to pay off my car, my mortgage. It's like, I say to my husband, I'm like, that is my Fleetwood Mac money. When they come full of rich, Christine McVie had to be there. I'm going. I don't care if it's nosebleeds. I'm going. So then I hear they're coming, and then they tell me that Lindsay's been kicked out, and I saw them perform on Ellen, The Chain, and I'm like, no, you need Lindsay. You need that tension between Lindsay and Stevie.
Yeah, and it's just that, like, it's that sort of, you know, bluesy edge that he gives it that I just love as well. So
and such a great guitar player.
Yeah, it's that the sort of fingerstyle blues stuff is, you know, we've got a lot of that sort of influence in our stuff. Definitely. Well, when we first started out, there was one of the bands that people would always come up and say, "Oh, you sound a bit like Fleetwood Mac."
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
I like that.
So that obviously has come through a lot in like my writing and stuff like that, I suppose. But
so, what was the first record or CD or tape or whatever you bought? What was that? Do you
I
remember?
bought,
Yeah, with your own money. What was that?
my own money. It would probably have been when I was in year 7, I bought Permission to Land by The Darkness, which
Really?
yeah was the album that actually made me want to start playing guitar, because at that point I only played I played melodeon, you know, this Irish instrument from my granddad in the Bowron, and I used to sing, but I didn't actually play guitar at that point, and that's like my main instrument now. And that album was just what made me want to buy an electric guitar and try and be a rock star. Yeah, I just love it. I still listen to it all the time. The Darkness were just one of my absolute like formative listening.
And still, that record still obviously is quite special to you.
Listened to it like 2 weeks ago. You always listen to it like on the way to festivals and stuff like that, because it's a great record, and it's also just hilarious. Like, I love Justin Hawkins, all the like operatic, ridiculous singing and stuff like that. It's great.
The podcast we did before you was a guy named Joel Death, and he's now works for Music for Nations, but he was the A&R person for The Darkness on that record.
Yeah,
that's why I'm like, that's so cool. The full circle, the circle of life.
Yeah. Everyone loves The Darkness. That's it. Yeah.
So, what is your first musical memories that you really remember is playing these instruments with your grandfather, or that was the first time?
I mean, literally, my first kind of musical memories are of like listening to him. I remember one of the things I used to go stay there at the weekends, and one of the things that I loved as a young kid was like he'd let me stay up really late, and I just got so many memories of like sitting in his conservatory, like just like sitting cross-legged on the floor, and he'd be playing and singing some like old Irish song, and I just absolutely loved it.
Please tell me there's some pictures of this.
There's loads of pictures of it, yeah, loads of very
videos?
Embarrassing. Yeah, there's lots of videos.
I bet that's so cute.
Yeah, well, he was actually obsessed with videoing himself playing. So I've actually, when he died, I picked up all this stuff out of his garage, which is all this like old technology, and there's just hours and hours of videos of him like sitting there. He sort of thought of himself as this kind of presenter of like Irish folk music, and it'd be him sitting there like in his summer house just filming himself like talking about some Irish.
So it wasn't for him to watch his like finger playing and figure out how to get better. It was more like him as a documentarian.
As a documentarian, definitely. Like he had a very sort of lofty opinion of himself in that sense. He thought like he needed to like record all this stuff because the world needed to see it, and he was going to be super famous and all that. So he definitely, had that sort of element of kind of narcissism that I guess appears in all songwriters. So maybe I sort of got that from him, I suppose. But he was a hilarious guy. But there's videos on YouTube of us playing together actually just before he died. If you type in Sam and Grandad Kelly, like.
I'll definitely check that out. My train journey home sorted out.
Yeah.
Who are some of your musical heroes? We said Lindsey Buckingham. Is there anyone else that has been like really impactful for you?
I mean, my big one in terms of actual professional musicians who I listen to is Joni Mitchell. I just like absolutely love all of her stuff. And in terms of like the artist that I've probably listened to the most throughout my life is Joni, probably. Her album Blue, it's probably my like most listened to album, and just her songwriting is just like blows my mind. And it's one of those things that you just. Same with Jeff Buckley. I love Jeff Buckley and Grace. Like I've listened to it hundreds of times, but every time I listen to it, like it's like sitting in the dark with headphones on, and you just notice something that you haven't noticed before, and that's what, because I'm a producer as well, and that's kind of been one of my biggest sort of production influences. It's those like headphone moments where you like, if you Joe Bloggs listening to the music on your laptop speakers or your car speakers, you don't notice it, but it's when you're listening in dead silence through headphones that you notice there's all this like underlying stuff going on. And I love stuff like that. It's amazing. So yeah, Joni is my.
And Jeff, and I 100% agree on both of those. So what are you working on right now? You had the record out last year.
Yeah, so we brought our band album out last year, which was our second album, and like I was working on that for like 2.5 years, so it's like a long process. So I'm still kind of
recovering.
How
do you know when it's done? Like that's the thing. Are you constant, especially now that you're in the producer role? Did you produce your record yourself too?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you not keep fiddling and changing and adding and adjusting?
Well, the beauty of that side of things was it just is limited by budget, because we did it at a studio down in Cornwall where I lived at the time, and it's made an amazing studio down there called Cube Recording that I do a lot of work at, and it was just, we only had as much time as the budget would allow, and I couldn't, I could edit and stuff at home, but I couldn't actually mix the record at home because I didn't have all the plugins that they have in the studio. So it was literally just, we've got this amount of time, and it's got to be finished at the end of that. So, and I think that's actually helpful for me, because otherwise I would have literally just kept working on it forever. So, and this was the first album we did with a record label as well. So it was like the first one where we actually had a deadline. We need to have the masters by the 25th of June or whatever it was. So that's that's helpful in that sense. But at the minute, I'm working on a couple of other things. I've got this duo album that I've just finished recording that's actually been mixed this week in Bath. I'm sort of back and forth doing that with a folk singer called Ruth Notman, and we're releasing that on Kate Rusby's record label, which is called Pure Records up in Yorkshire, and that's coming out next year. So working on that, and then I'm producing another record by this singer-songwriter from Birmingham called Chris Cleverly in November. So starting work on that. So it's nice to do some things that aren't my own music at the minute. I'm enjoying that while I'm not feeling as pressured to start writing on my next album. So that's good.
How did you move from songwriting and doing your own projects to producing? Like, what was that process?
Well, I just kind of fell into it, really. I did music tech when I was at college, so I had a bit of the knowledge of that side of things, but didn't do a whole lot of it when I was at uni in Brighton. I just sort of was playing live gigs, and I didn't have the equipment. And then when I went on Britain's Got Talent and earned a bit of money the following summer, I earned enough to buy myself my own little studio setup. So got back into it from that, and I've just always produced my own stuff, and have slowly started. It's kind of been a natural thing where I haven't consciously tried to go into other people's stuff, but people have just started asking me to do things, like people I've met along the way and who've heard my records and then asked who produced it and whatever. And I've had a load of really good sort of mentors on that side of things. We did our first EP at Metway Studios in Brighton, the Levelers studio, and their engineer Toby May, he was sort of one of my first mentors in that side of thing. And I've sort of learnt it all by just kind of crash course, really, just sort of doing it by myself. Because I think I'm a bit of a control freak with my stuff. If there's not many people I'd trust more than myself to get it right how I want it, I suppose. So kind of just fallen into it, I guess.
But also, you've been proactive at the same time. Like, you're out there now, just being at festivals, you're out there talking to people, getting your music out. What has the process been having a record label? Like, what's the difference between doing it yourself?
Yeah. Well, it's amazing for me because it just takes a bit of... it allows me to focus on the music a bit more, because with our first album, we did release it on a record label, but it was a start-up label that I started with this other lady, Tanya Britton, and so we were still very much doing everything, and it was like learning as we went. And I very much enjoy and feel I'm quite good at the music side of things, but the whole release side of things I was terrible at, and really, just things that like you don't even think about, if you don't know a lot about it, like the PR and things like that, and
quite intimidating as well, isn't it?
Yeah, trying to get everything to happen at the same time, down to like trying to set up pre-orders on iTunes, trying to get it to come out on like Spotify and iTunes and Deezer and whatever all at the same time, stuff like that I just sucked at, and posting out the CDs myself. We just had like 4,000 copies of the album
Under the
in our
bed.
tiny little flat.
Yeah.
Like they were like the chairs in the dining room and stuff like that. So having that all taken out of my hands has just been amazing. And also, you know, the label we have, Navigator Records, is, you know, by label standards, it's not a big record label. It's a small London-based folk label, but on the folk scene, it is one of the biggest. And so, you know, just
they know the market.
Yeah. So the slight, you know, PR machine that comes with that as well. It's been brilliant for us, and just sort of in terms of getting people to take us seriously, I suppose. It's great to have a team as well.
Do you think it was good, though, so you could kind of understand a little bit more what goes into the release, though? Was that helpful, now that you look back on it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because, you know, I even just for learning that I'm not really cut out to do that kind of thing myself, because, you know, you can do a lot of it yourself nowadays, but just really hurt my brain trying to organise it all. So it's good to have had that, you know, to have had it from both sides. It is good. So yeah, I feel a lot more experienced for having done it myself. But it's nice to have a label and also under my own terms now. That, you know, whereas label offers that we've had in the past have been a bit like more intimidating and felt a bit more kind of disjointed from it. So it's nice to have a label that I feel are on my side as well. Cool.
So what, I mean, when you walked in, we were talking, I mean, I was going to say, what's your biggest accomplishment? To me, the fact that you are a musician, that is your job. To me, that seems like a massive, big accomplishment. What would you say is your biggest accomplishment?
I mean, I definitely agree with that. Having like, I think, well, one of the main things I think you learn as a musician, but also work in any job in the creative industry, like when you're a teenager and younger, you have all these wild ideas of what making it is. Mm-hmm. And I think as you get older, you realise that making it is literally just being able to do what you love to do as a job, and that's definitely what I've come to realise. And having had the total other side of it, you know, even just 5 years ago when I was working 2 pub jobs and a care work job at the same time as trying to do gigs with the band and hardly getting enough money to pay rent and stuff like that, and not having a good time. You know, now looking back on that, you know, even though I'm still just earning enough money, like just to pay rent and pay, you know, for the car and the van and stuff, it's like...
Are you getting the nice toilet paper?
You're getting very nice toilet. I think that's very important.
That is one of the things, like I always say to my husband, I'm like, you know, that's how I know I've made it, is when I get the quilted
toilet paper. Sometimes the one that smells of lavender, but that's only...
It is a treat. That's a treat.
That's only if we've had a few decent festivals.
Yes, sold some merch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In fact, we just go straight, take the CDs, trade them in.
That's right. You just go up to Tesco.
We have a deal.
I mean, I know for myself, there's been so many times when I'm just like, it's so much easier not to do like what you do. How did you, caretaker, 2 jobs at a pub, plus doing the band, how did you keep going with all that shit on? I mean, that just sounds horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, it just sort of got on with it, really. I was like, we were living in Crawley at that time as well, so it was, you know, we'd just finished uni in Brighton, where it's been, you know, all amazing. And
at BIMM.
At BIMM, yeah. And like, it was a very, you know, you get that post-uni blues thing anyway, and like, you know, I'd just been on Britain's Got Talent, so it was all kind of a weird time anyway, but like, you know, to go from that sort of feeling like, you know, you've got everything on a plate for you, and like, you know, I was staying in a Hilton in London for a few months with all my food paid for, like had a personal shopper and like all this, and like
we're going to talk about this. I'll break out. I want to hear all this.
Being driven around, and then going from that to working in a Weatherspoons in Crawley Town Centre, you know, it's like it was
wiping someone's butt literally as a
yeah,
caretaker.
exactly, and like, you know, that it just like, I guess I'm lucky in that I never it just never really bothered me that much, to be honest, because I love playing folk music and always have. And even though we were playing to, 6 people in the Frog and Afterbirth pub or whatever, it's like...
Frog and Afterbirth?
Yeah, I just chose 2 random
Oh
words.
my God, I love that.
Yeah.
Listen, you cannot do that pub without me. Okay?
Yeah, no, okay,
so
next time.
That's what we'll do in
Next
Cornwall.
time we're playing there, I'll tell you. Yeah. It's in Cornwall, actually. That one, yeah.
It is in Cornwall.
And, I still, even though I was playing to like hardly any people, I still loved it because we were playing music that I loved. So, honestly, it sounds cliche, but that was just sort of kept me doing it. Just knowing that I wasn't doing it for money or anything like that. I was just doing it because I really enjoyed it. That was literally just what kept me going. So,
did you have the feeling of, especially like, and we're talking about Britain Got Talents next, but you've been on such a high, and then it almost feels like this massive come down. But then if you didn't, you kind of had to push it. I feel like this sometimes myself. I have to keep going till like I feel like I can look back and be like, I went as hard as I could, as long as I could. Was there some of that in it too? Like you didn't want to give up.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like, and I guess the other thing is, I'm 26 now, and like I haven't had a proper job for like 4 years, and the other thing that comes into it is just you get more and more unemployable as you get older, I think, as well. So, it's you just got to, you get to that point where you're also thinking, I need to keep doing this, otherwise I'm not going to be able to do anything else. So
you have so many but that's what we can do. That's different podcasts, because you basically are running your own business. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's definitely a crash course in all other aspects of things. Like, with the full band that we have now, we've got 7-piece band. It's like crash course in tour management. Initially, it was crash course in being your own booking agent. Being your own label, being your own producer, everything like that. You just, I was lucky, that I did learn a bit about that at BIMM to prepare me for it, things that nobody prepares you for, like the PRS, the PPL, the MCPS, all that stuff, and stuff that I would have just had no idea how to do. So you got all that, and then also, you're trying to run your own business at the same time, I remember going and having a meeting with a business advisor at NatWest.
Oh my God.
Trying to set up a business account.
Oh
and
my
it was just
God.
like, as a 19-year-old, and I was just like,
what did you wear?
Hell? I wore a shirt and a tie.
Did you?
And
Oh, bless
some
you.
jeans, and just felt like a total prat.
Were they just like looking at you like, you're a musician, like you're not going to get anywhere, you're a toolbox, basically?
Yeah, basically. And it's like I'm very lucky in that I've got a very, very grounding family. Like my dad's a school teacher and my mum is an occupational therapist, and so like they both have very like honest, normal jobs, and have never been self-employed. So they've sort of, rather than telling me what to do and telling me how to go about things, they've always just been like, okay, Sam's off doing his weird thing that he does again.
Britain's Got Talent. I have to hear, I want the details, I want the nitty gritty,
Yeah.
I want to hear it all. So were you like, I want to be on Britain's, was this like a massive dream of yours?
No, definitely not.
Okay, so how did that happen?
Well, I've never really watched much TV at all.
You don't have the vibe at all.
No, I'd not just reality shows, just all TV. I just never really watched TV that much, just not really that bothered. And especially not talent shows and things like that. In fact, I really didn't like them at all. But when I was in my second year of BIMM in Brighton, we had a couple of shows, this little sort of folky band that I had with Jamie, who's still the banjo player in my band now, who I met at BIMM. And this other guy, Tart Bowen, we were playing in a trio together, and we had 2 gigs in London, at the Bedford in Balham and the Slaughtered Lamb in Clerkenwell, and they were 2 days apart from each other. So they had 2 days in between the 2 gigs.
Were you staying up in London then?
We were staying at Tark's Sisters in London, and which happened to be near the O2, where the Britain's Got Talent auditions were happening. We walked past and saw that it was all going on.
You literally just walked past?
I just decided to just see if I could get an audition then and there, and just got one, and
how does that work? So are you allowed to reveal that? Like what's?
Well, you basically
you walk up.
So that first round where you see like the footage of like thousands of people queuing. I don't know if it's the same on X Factor, but certainly on Britain's Got Talent, it's like you go through that whole queuing system.
How long were you waiting there for, Sam?
I don't know how much to reveal, but I managed to bypass the queue because I was just walking past and I had a guitar on my back. I just went to the building where there's just like bouncers and there's this big like all the barriers for the queues, and just said, can I just go in and use the toilet?
No, you didn't.
And I did, and went in to use the toilet and just managed to get in and get an audition, which was amazing. But you just...
It has to be so hard to get the audition in the first place.
Well, you have to like you have to sign up, and you sign like
your life
these
away.
Things that I was just like, but later on in the process, when I actually did have a meeting with a music lawyer, when I'd got further in the competition, and they were explaining all the things.
Oh, they signed, yes.
Yeah, so that was quite scary, but then I just
Sorry, I was going to have a question. So with that first round, you're not in front of the judges.
No, you play in front of like producers of the show.
Is it terrifying? Like were you peeing your pants with fright?
No, I didn't really have.
You didn't care
any idea what was going on. Really, I just it was kind of I wanted to see how it worked, I suppose, and just went and did that, and I just didn't think anything else of it. They don't say
anything.
They don't say yes or no. They just say, "Oh, thanks. We'll
be in touch,
or not."
Yeah,
and I just didn't hear anything for like 4 months.
Really, 4 months?
Because that would have been in like September or October.
Did you forget all about it, or were you just
just
we did, yeah.
We played the gig a couple of days later, and then just went back to Brighton and just forgot about it, and then got a call just after Christmas saying we want to put you through to a judge audition, and that's when I had to go up to Manchester for that because they randomly distribute everyone everywhere. Went up to Manchester, and that's when you do the big like ridiculous thing in front of thousands of people.
Oh my God!
And in front of it was Simon Cowell, David Williams, Amanda Holden, and Alicia Dixon. And that was just ridiculous. Like I'd never done anything like it. And I had two of my housemates came with me. We all like road tripped up to Manchester, and my sister came as well. And it was just ridiculous. Like I just played a cover of Bob Dylan's song, and it just went really well, and they really liked it. And from that point onwards, it was just a bit of like because that was 3 or 4 months before it was actually televised, but still the next day there was like, I was seeing things in like, crappy tabloid newspapers about myself.
Were you getting papped?
Yeah.
Really?
And like, because that's when they're trying to sort of build up a bit of interest around the show, and it was weird. And then
were they finding like ex-girlfriends of yours and stuff like that?
Yeah,
no, they weren't.
It was, yeah.
Oh
really
my
weird.
God!
But then there was this kind of like just weird period between that and when it was actually televised in April, where I was just living at uni and doing the same
You're back
things as I was always doing. Yeah.
And could you tell people that you had made it, or were you not?
I wasn't supposed to, no. But it's like my two housemates came with me, and so like word got around somehow. But and then when it came on telly, I just remember the first night that my audition was on. It was on the first show of the series.
Oh my God!
And I had like 99 followers on Twitter, and it's just I didn't really use it and whatever, but they sort of they encourage you to have all your social stuff set up, and just was literally just watching it on telly, on Twitter, on my phone, just watching it like go like 99 and suddenly like 2,000 and like 3,000, like 4,000, like, and just like getting these constant like tweets from people, and then also just like texts from, you know, like people from my school who I hadn't like spoken to for years, and it was totally mental. And then that happened, and then it was all like weird for a while, and then got through to the live shows, which, you know, was like playing in front of like 13 million people on ITV.
Oh,
it was
my
like
God.
Like was living in a Hilton hotel in London while it was all happening, just being driven around. And
what would you do during the daytime?
just nothing. I was just like, I was one of the only people who was there by myself. There was another guy who's my age there called Ryan O'Shaughnessy, who I made really good friends with, and he was actually at BIMM in Dublin as well at the same time, and he represented Ireland at Eurovision this year. Actually.
Really?
Yeah. He's an amazing guy, amazing songwriter as well. But we were like the only two people who were sort of there by ourselves. So most of the other people had like family units around them, and so we ended up hanging out a lot. Just chilling at the hotel, like, you know, all the food was paid for, so I'd have like 3 free carveries a day and like all that kind of stuff, and loads of rehearsals at the studios, and I had a personal shopper that took me to like Top Man.
Did they style you?
Yeah, and like.
But they like, you must wear this kind of thing.
Yeah, and like did a like went to like the personal shopping section of Top Man in Oxford Street, which I didn't even know was a thing, and like, you know, like champagne while I was waiting to get all these clothes, and did like all these interviews and I did a photo shoot for Now magazine, which was ridiculous. I was like in a like vest top, like lying down in some tractor tires with a purple background.
Is this after all the? Is this after the 3 carveries a day? Like what?
Yeah. So it was. They did actually
light airbrushing.
Yeah, they wanted to do a shirtless shot, but after spending like half an hour trying to draw a 6-pack on with makeup,
they did not.
Yeah, they just gave up. It was hilarious. You know, like Barbara Windsor was in the booth next door doing a photo shoot for it, and just all this ridiculous stuff like that happened. And
were you getting tapped at that point? Like when the show was on, would photographers be waiting around outside for you?
Yeah, but I'd always had this like, you know, throughout the whole thing, I just had this thing of like, none of this is real. Like in my head, it's just like, this is really fun and ridiculous, but none of it's real. Like, you know, there was constantly paparazzi people like waiting outside the hotel, but they weren't waiting for me. They were waiting for like the contestants of Britain's Got Talent and whatever. So the whole time I was on it, I just, you know, the whole thing was so ridiculous that I was just like.
And nothing you weren't aspiring for it either. It was kind of like a fluke you got on in a way.
And you know, there was definitely a part of me. I'd be lying if I didn't say there wasn't a part of me that was like, oh my God, I'm going to be really famous now.
How can you
like
not?
I'm going to be so successful, and like, you know, look at all my followers on Twitter. But I think I still sort of had that, you know, all my friends and family were like really grounded about it, and just like they came along and really enjoyed it, but were just a bit like, this is ridiculous, what you're doing is ridiculous. And I think that helped me to sort of make the decision after the show to not go forward with any of the sort of
offers that were made to you.
Yeah.
So just a couple more questions. I want to move on to that. Did you have much interaction with the judges?
Well, the one that I had the most interaction with was Simon Cowell, who actually like was just like a super nice guy, and he was the only one who like he knew all of the acts by name, and like he, you know, most of the famous people who we saw were quite aloof with everybody because it's, you know, it's just their job. It's like, you know, they see thousands of people all the time, but he was, you know, you'd pass him in the studios if you're in there for rehearsals or whatever, and he'd be like, oh, hi Sam. I'm like, hi Simon. He's like, how's your rehearsals going? I hear you were thinking of doing that song by, you know, blah blah blah. And I was like, oh yeah, I was thinking of doing it. Yeah, it's going really well. Like, you know, it's that sort of. He was just a really nice guy to me. So that was a surprise. But apart from that, I didn't. You know, we partied with them after the final. Like, we had this massive like rap party, which was, I mean, I can't remember a lot of, but we, you know, partied with a lot of them. There's loads of, you know, these ridiculous people there. So it was a bit of a weird time, but then it was over, and it was like.
Was that a massive come down? It was like you're
you're
on TV in front of 13 million people, and then you're just back to living in Crawley/Brighton.
Well, that was it. It coincided with the time that my mum was ill, really sick, off work with breast cancer, and so after I
is she okay
finished,
now?
yeah, she's fine now.
Goodness, okay.
She's fine now. But after I finished the show, I went back and moved back in with my mum because I decided to leave BIMM because I'd sort of in the last year with all that stuff, I'd like missed all of my lectures and missed a couple of exams, and in the summer I finished. I went back and did my modules that I missed, but just to finish the foundation degree. But then decided to quit. Went back and moved with my mum, and just sort of had a couple of months where I was literally just at home, like just hanging out, just, you know, playing on the PlayStation, all my friends coming over all the time, and just had a completely sort of grounding couple of months where I just sort of, you know, had some time to sit and think about everything.
You also think it was so real and so important with your mom.
Yeah,
and what
exactly,
a contrast is that with what you were going through. Did you see other people around you really get caught up in that? Like, I'm famous and I'm being...
Yeah, well, I mean, like, actually a lot of people who didn't know me that well were like that more, which was kind of helpful in a way, I think, because, you know, there was loads of people who, you know, I'd get messages on Facebook from people from my school, like, oh, hi Sam, it's so good to see you doing so well, like, we've got to meet up for a catch up, and like, I'm like, you used to bully me at school, like,
there's nothing to catch up on, so we're punching you in the face maybe,
you know, there was that kind of thing. But I had a very small but very close group of friends that I sort of just hung out with and had some time to think about things. And I initially had management from Raw Global and an agency deal with Industry Music, people who booked for One Direction and all of the talent show stuff, and did a few gigs at Butlins, which was very nice, which throughout that summer just earned me like more money than I'd ever seen in one place at one time, enough to buy myself a little studio set up, which was lovely. And then after that, it was obvious that it wasn't going anywhere. Like there was two like guys with guitar that year, me and Ryan played his own songs, whereas I played covers on the show. So they were more invested in him, which it got to the end of the summer and just was like everything just sort of fizzled out. And, you know, I'd had a few offers of, you know, doing some recordings, but just like covers, and I just was not into it. And I think it got to the point where they were just like, oh, we can't really be bothered. If you can't be bothered, we can't be bothered. And so they just let me go from everything.
Were you terrified? Were you just like, I'm parting ways with this massive company and do my own thing?
I mean, I was, but I just, at the same time, like, just got really bad vibes from the whole thing. I just had this really bad feeling about the whole thing, and just decided to just go with my gut on it, really. And then, you know, at first it was difficult because we were going to play gigs. Me and Jamie were just playing as a duo, and you know, we did a few gigs that year. Like, we played at the Louisiana here in Bristol, and you know, like 25 people turned up or something, and I was expecting, you know, I was
jammed.
Just, you know, I don't know what I was expecting, but there was a part of me that was like, look, I've got 70,000 followers on Twitter now. Surely I'm going to get like at least 50,000 of them turn up to my shows. obviously it doesn't work like that with live gigs. And it was like we had this weird sort of transition period where we'd have, you know, a bunch of sort of 14, 15-year-old girls come to the shows with their parents, and the girls would all be like standing at the front, like watching the gig through their phones, and their parents would be stood at the back, and we'd be playing this sort of like weird mixture of like the stuff we'd been playing in our other band anyway, like folky stuff, and then just throw in the Britain's Got Talent songs as well. And it just had we had this weird thing where the parents were enjoying the gigs a lot more than the kids. And they'd be like, every gig they'd come up to us at the end and be like, I was expecting to absolutely hate that, but like really loved it, and just slowly transitioned from that into the folk scene. Like, and it was really difficult at first to get gigs in the folk scene because obviously it was like Britain's Got Talent, whatever, you know, that was the only thing we could talk about in the bio and stuff like that. And so it's really tough to get any gigs.
It's like one line on your website. Like, you have so many other accomplishments now.
Well, yeah, and there's a few things that have happened since then that really bumped us up. And so...
I was going to say, it's like getting your music synced. I know your music's been synced on shows like Hollyoaks.
Yeah.
Has that been a big thing that's pushed it out, do you think? Or has it been being played on the radio? Or what do you think?
The sync stuff has kind of happened over the last year and a half since we've had a publisher, which is something that I really didn't expect at all. Like, we've had it, one of our songs used on Hollyoaks. One was the backing music to a Sky Sports darts advert, which is not what I expected at all. But I don't think things like that have actually... They've been nice bonuses. They haven't actually helped our career. The thing that really massively jumped us up was when I got the Horizon Award at the Radio 2 Folk Awards 3 years ago, which before then, it was like, you know, we were taking whatever gigs we could get, and on all the promo, like every compere that would introduce us at festivals, would be like, Britain's Got Talent, and then you saw all these folkies just sort of...
Who is this? Like they were expecting to hate you.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, and that made us a lot better live because we had to win people over. So it definitely, you know, that wasn't necessarily a negative thing. But getting the Horizon Award, which is like the sort of up and coming award thing, was a massive step in our career because that's literally that point is when it changed from us emailing loads of festivals trying to fill up our diary in the summer to loads of festivals trying to book us, and us having to pick and choose which ones to do.
That's the dream right there, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was the same with venue gigs after that. You know, London was a great benchmark because it was like the one city that we'd consistently played in ever since we were at uni, and when I remember first playing our first ever headline show there after Britain's Got Talent, like there was about 30 people there, and then we used to play at this venue, the Green Note in Camden, which is one of my favourite venues. But you know, and from that we slowly watched it grow from like 20 people, it'd be like 40 people the next time, 50 people the next time, sell out the next time, and now we've moved up to a bigger venue because we can't fit there anymore.
And,
our last show,
strangers, whereas like people you don't...
exactly.
A stranger is here.
Like, wait, I've never seen you before. How did you find out about my music?
Exactly.
Yeah. And you know, the last show we played in London, Cecil Sharp House, we had like 250 people there. So like, London's been a great way of just seeing how we've slowly built it up over the last sort of 6-7 years since Britain's Got Talent. And it's just it's nice to have experienced that sort of, you know, massive high and then drop down and slow build up again.
I love the whole story.
Yes.
This is one of my favorite stories. Seriously, it's so good.
Thanks.
Seriously, I love it. So, okay, would you suggest, if someone's listening to this, would you say, if they're thinking about maybe going to one of these talent shows, would you say, just give it a whirl, why not?
Well, I think it really depends. Like, I mean, I had an amazing time on it, like really, really did. Like, I'm still wearing the clothes that I got bought from it. You know, I bought like thousands of pounds worth of clothes. Like, and I just had such an amazing time, and I'll remember it forever. but there was a lot of people who I was good friends with on there who had a horrible time because they were. I think it so depends on what your expectations for it are. Like, there was a lot of people who were expecting that they would do that and then just that's them set for the rest of their life, and they're going to be famous and successful, and that's just not how it works unless you're one of the very few lucky ones.
But like One Direction is like really the only band I can think of in recent times.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And I guess maybe Little Mix to a lesser extent, but like
Muttley.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Was it your year? Was your year Muttley?
Oh no, Pudsey.
Pudsey. That's what I meant.
Dog.
Yeah.
And he and weirdly, I was
beaten by a dog, but you were the popular vote favorite.
Well,
was that a total like amazing experience feeling?
I mean, I think that was literally just my mum. I think my mum racked up like a several £1,000s phone bill for that.
I'm sure that's not true.
No, it was great because I was very lucky in that year. There was a lot of musicians on it because that was the year where the ratings had been really bad the year before, and Simon Cowell had come back into it and they'd been trying to make it a lot fresher and newer, and so they tried to get a lot of sort of young, cooler musicians on it. So I was lucky that in the one sense that I was involved in that year where it was they tried to be a bit more serious about it and try and find some people that could have sustainable careers, albeit not many people from my year have, but also I was lucky that they just wanted to portray me as myself, really, just kind of like a.
Did you see them
goofy,
edit people like that? You
really a lot. Like I even saw it with me, but
really.
But
did you watch the shows as they were being aired?
Yeah.
Was that really uncomfortable?
And well, I mean, I was one of the lucky ones because they just have so much footage of you that they can basically make you out to
how you want,
be whatever, And so, if I was one of the ones who they wanted to do a real sort of character assassination on, they easily could have, just editing certain question answers to go with other questions and just taking little bits of footage out of context and stuff like that. It's like
that's a reality. That's a reality no one thinks about, really.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And now whenever I watch anything like that, I'm just sort of notice every little cut of everything like that, where you just even the people who they want people to vote for will just subtly get a little bit more airtime and might be
set up in a slightly different way.
Whereas somebody else they want to lose might be a little bit of footage of them picking their nose or something, or it's really, really interesting from that point of view. But I don't know what I'd say. Because people have come up and asked me I'm thinking about doing this, or they've got in touch and have asked me to audition, and a lot of people have asked me that, and I've always said honestly I just can't give you any advice. If you want to do it, then do it, but
don't
have any expectations. And certainly don't base anything of what you want to do on what's going to come out of that show, and also prepare for it to be pretty difficult afterwards.
In so many different ways that you've talked about, although you do get the good wardrobe.
Exactly.
So that's the one that.
But at the end of the day, I had an amazing time. I made friends with loads of the staff who were working there, and they were all absolutely lovely. I don't agree with the whole thing. I think the whole idea of it and how they, there's a lot of people who I met who were really genuinely mentally unstable and really believed that they were really good at what they did, and they were terrible, and they were jumped up to believe.
Honey, that's in every single occupation.
Yeah,
except
true,
yours is in front of 13 million people. That's true. The difference,
But just seeing people get up and just be absolutely taken apart, by 4,000 people just booing them, it was horrible.
I just can't imagine the extreme high that you're describing of you're being treated like Mariah Carey back in the late 90s. You know what I mean? Literally.
Yeah.
And then literally you're just tossed out, and then that's the end.
Yeah.
So it's such extremes.
Yeah. I mean, in a weird way, I think it helped that I've always been a massive video gaming nerd, and throughout my whole life I've always played video games, and the end of the show happened to coincide with this new video game coming out that I'd been waiting for ages.
You are such a dork.
So I literally went back to my mum's house and just played this game for like 2 months.
It wasn't Tekken, was it?
It wasn't Tekken, it was Skyrim. And
I'll kick your ass at Tekken, by the way.
Really?
Oh, dude,
Fine.
Continue!
Well, we've got an original Nintendo 64 in our house.
Oh, so. Don't you threaten me with a good time, young man.
Yeah, come over and play it. It's great. No, it's just so... I've always had that to just sort of escape and like... Sounds weird, but I think actually that was a...
Was this so different, yeah?
Yeah, just sort of downtime. I know a lot of people, even who work in the folk scene, people I know now who just... Their whole life is their music and like... You know, constantly, people who are just constantly on social media and constantly just never switch off from their job, which, you know, makes them very successful at what they do, but also just...
A little one-dimensional, too.
Fry your brain after a while as well. But
I was reading yesterday, I went on Amazon America for something, and of course I'm totally narcissistic, and I read my own reviews.
Yeah.
And someone had given my book a 3-star review. And I was so upset. Like, I was like, read what they said. I'm like, no, but... And like, I think you have to take on a little bit of that, but at the same time, that's like a public persona. Like, it's not... It's a persona you put out there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. And that was another great thing about being on Britain's Got Talent, is obviously like for the first few weeks I'd like go on the YouTube video of my audition and like read all the comments and everything, and you know that was the first experience I'd had of people saying hurtful things about like my music, and like that was my first experience of that, and it didn't bother me at all. There was some things that'd be like, you know, if you read like a really negative thing, oh, that's really hurtful. But then you sort of imagine the person sitting there writing it, and you're just like, wait, they're the really sad one here, not me. But also we'd really, like my 2 housemates at the time, really found the whole thing absolutely hilarious and really took the piss out of me because of it. And so did my sister. And they created this group on Facebook where they chronologically logged all of their favorite comments from like videos of my audition on YouTube, or like
things
still
that they've seen.
Can I
go find this?
It does. It's a closed group though.
Okay. You're not going to let me in.
Leak it. But some of them are absolutely hilarious, and that, you know, that was but from a serious perspective, it did give me experience and preparation for, you know, getting to that stage where people do give you bad reviews, or like, you know,
don't get it or whatever it
is. And that's got to be part and parcel of any creative person's life. If you're making something and then putting it out there for people to consume, you've got to be prepared for people to not like it. And you know, it's definitely a really important part of the process. And you know, so that sort of prepared me for that as well, I guess. And yeah, we've been quite lucky with our music that we haven't got that many negative reviews and things about it. But,
I can give you a 3-star.
I think that's worse than the 1 star.
1 star is just like they hate you. But 3 stars like, meh, you're kind of crap. But they care enough to leave a review, but not enough to like completely rip you a new one. You know, we have time for one more question, so I have to ask you this. What are 3 pieces of advice you either give your younger self, although you pretty much are an embryo anyway, or a kid at BIMM or student at BIMM who's watching this? What were 3 things you would say?
I mean, one thing I'd say, especially to people at BIMM, like there's no right or wrong way of doing things. Like, you know, that's one thing I really used to sort of tear myself up about, is thinking, oh, am I doing the right thing? Was that the right decision? And there's no right or wrong way of doing anything, whether it's musically or in terms of making a career for yourself. You just got to sort of take things as they come and like go with it, and try not to get too hung up about anything. But having said that, the other piece of advice that I'd give, particularly to myself, is just like create opportunities for yourself, because, you know, the other side of the coin to that is things.
What does that mean?
So like, I kind of had this thing in my head that especially when I was at BIMM, but especially after Britain's Got Talent, I was like, if you're good at music, things will just happen. Like,
No.
and it just doesn't work like that. And it's been a slow learning curve for me. And the people, it's a cliche thing to say, but the people who are successful have failed way more times than the people who are failures. And that's just because they keep putting themselves up for things and, just
Keep the hustle on.
Keep playing the crappy gigs, keep playing to nobody in the shite pub down the road, it just...
The afterbirth.
Yeah, the frog and afterbirth. Just like, keep doing it. You just have to keep trying and keep creating opportunities for yourself and keep doing things. And then, you get to the point that I'm at now, which is like, I'm still not earning that much money and still want to be at the next stage for sure, but like, I'm having to turn things down and managing my time, so I'm doing the things that I want to do. But still, if I just, especially with making new records and getting work, and like I'm working on this thing at the minute, this Radio 2 Ballads thing that's coming out next November, that I just got by emailing the person who I knew had found out was programming the show, and like, it's just things like that. You can't just sit on your ass and try and let it happen, because you won't get anywhere.
Would the third piece of advice also kind of be use your network?
Yeah, and
be out there.
And don't be ashamed to network as well. Don't be ashamed to go up to people and say, I'm such and such, and I'm a musician, and here's a CD. Like, just let me know if you like it. And it's because that's what people do, and it can seem a totally lame thing to do if you're one of the people like I am, who's just kind of like, I just want to make music, man, and everything else will take care of itself. There's no shame in that, and but also the main thing above everything else is just don't be an arsehole. Like, that's, if there's one thing I've learned, especially in the music scene, just don't be an arsehole, and then you'll get on fine.
I always tell people, I'm like, if you don't like someone, be super nice, and then as soon as you're home, all doors are closed, all recordings are off, then you can like blasphemy them to high heaven.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your social media if you want to add to the 70,000?
It's not 70,000 anymore. I had a bit of a
purge.
I've got like 30,000 followers on Twitter now, and I lost like 8,000 in one day when I
Oh my God.
I tweeted negatively about One Direction's performance at the Brits, which was a real mistake on my part.
I try to never put anything negative about other people on there, because if people really knew how I felt, they would not like me. Period.
Exactly.
30,000 is good though. So okay, you're gonna have 30,001. So I'm gonna add myself. So where do I find you, darling?
It's all Sam Kelly Music, so it's like Twitter /Sam Kelly Music, Facebook /Sam Kelly Music.
Are you on Insta with that good-looking face?
No,
no Instagram, not with a six-pack.
Yeah, can't be bothered to draw it on every day. My band has Instagram because a couple of the other guys. So there's Sam Kelly and the Lost Boys on Instagram. But
do you like the Lost Boys movie? I have to ask that.
I've never actually seen it. But I need to watch it.
Sam
Kiefer
Kelly.
Sutherland. Yeah, I need to do my research.
Shot in my hometown, Santa Cruz.
Really? Well, I have to watch it.
You'll be
Maybe
like this.
tonight.
You'll be like, this movie is not very good, but it's so good.
They've totally ripped off my band.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
right, exactly. Well, Sam, thank you so much. Loved talking to you. Love your story. I wish you so much success.
Thanks very
much.
much.
You're blushing.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's been lovely.
So fab. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us for this episode, and we'll see you next time.